Ladies and gentlemen, I have returned from the dead. So on Tuesday, you got to see the little video. You know, I thought I caught a cold or a flu or something, but turns out I caught COVID. There's a pretty nasty wave running around right now. This is actually the first time I've caught it, and hopefully the last. But, you know, the first 3 days have been pretty rough. And, you know, you could probably hear from my Tuesday voice that it was pretty damn rough too. But honestly, these last 2 days have been pretty good. No fever, you know, I still sound super stuffy. My nose running and everything. It's not exactly the best experience, but I'm back in shape to be recording videos and talking about stuff. And it's good timing because today is the release of Festival Booster. And it's time to actually talk about, is this set any good? Have they finally managed to design a good festival set? Because last year, it's like, there was a few good cards. There's like the good buff Saga card, Orpheus Aegis was really good Zorga stuff. Like there was a bunch of like nice cards, but they lacked something that was like properly meta changing or like a big reason for people to invest into the set. And I've literally been asking for years for Boucher to design sets the way that Pokemon designs their high class packs, like V-Star Universe or like any of the previous iterations of that, where it's like a big reprint set with some new cards and like some alt arts that would make people want to actually crack boxes. And with these boxes retailing for like 3,000, oops, upside down. These retail for like 3,000 yen. So it's like 30 bucks, right? And you are gonna pull cards that are usually worth like at least that price. So it's like, or sometimes double the price of a box. So it feels really worth to buy the product already. So let's talk about why that is. So for this Festival Booster, we're gonna be making 2 videos. This one I'm gonna be just talking about the actual new cards and like how impactful it might be on the meta. And then after that, tomorrow you're gonna see a video talking about specifically, were the reprints good and did they work? Did they reduce the prices? Is the market looking healthier? Is it easier to build decks? Is it easier to approach the game now? Especially because a lot of people really want to open product of this set. People are opening cases of Festival Booster for like, feels like the first time ever. So let's take a look today at the new cards and tomorrow at all of the reprints and how they've priced up in the market as well. All right, so let's take a look at the new cards. So first things first, we're going to basically break down the cards that are not Lyrical Monasterio in terms of new cards, which is not that many, right? So we have 4 generics in terms of like, you know, nationless cards, and then 1 of each for the 5 main nations, and then everything else is Lyrical, and it's kind of distributed into archetypes. So we'll talk about them in terms of archetypes, and you're going to want to listen to the Lyrical part because there is some meta changing archetypes in this set that you're going to want to know if you're playing in BCS season, because these will be legal for your BCS season. And if you're not prepared for Lady Willista over here, you might be in trouble. So let's get into it. So first things first, we talked about the red OT a little bit already in like a Tuesday stream VOD, where it's a really good card. You know, being able to, like, when you check it, you choose one of your standing rear guards and give it the restand effect is really nice. And if not, you call a card and, you know, and draw a card. It's really nice. You get a multi-tack. But the only thing that we didn't really talk about is that, like, this effect that says you choose a standing rearguard and give it the effect to restand at the end of its battle, it is a forced effect. So you cannot choose like none and then use the second part of it. You have to choose a rearguard that is standing. So if your only rearguard that's standing is one in your back row, then you have to select it and you just wasted an OT. So that's why you have to make sure you boost before you attack with your Vanguard, stuff like that. Like just these little things. In some decks you might not want to though, right? It's like, maybe you want to like leave it for like a restanding attack or something like that. So just kind of keep that in mind all the time. But this is a really explosive card because you give this effect to something like a RPD in Zorga, which is like a restanding grade 3 rearguard with a crit on it. Now it has 100 mil on it too, and it's restanding. It's super strong, right? You give this to like, you know, you put this in like Jewel, you put this in Chrono Jet. Like Chrono Jet already has so much pressure on the Vanguard column. Now you're putting pressure on the rearguard columns too. Like this OT especially replaces some of the worst OTs like Dark States and is just really strong. So that's why this card is the main chase card of the set too. It basically goes for the price of like, it's like 2/3 of the price of a box is this guy. So yeah, it's a really good card. But we didn't really talk about the blue one because this one got revealed on a Thursday, and honestly, I really like it. And I think that in a lot of decks that are already very good or already have access to multi-tack, this will be used in them instead. So in Japan, we have a deck called Ebisu that already does 5 attacks, but in this very set, we have a deck introduced, which is the new Willista, who does 5 attacks too, where if those 5 attacks have a crit attached to them at any point, that becomes a lot scarier. So this OT says, as the initial effect, you choose any card from your drop and add it back to your hand, and then choose any unit and give it an extra crit for that turn. So what's really cool about that is that you get to recur anything you want. You need a PG to survive next turn, you add a PG. You need Persona Ride because you're already ahead, you add the Persona Ride from your drop. You need an order in something like Eva, let's say, to like keep playing the long game, you add that back to your hand. So it's so nice that you can add anything. It's not restricted to unit cards, it's not restricted to like anything specific. You just recur something back to your hand, and that's very, very, very good. And on top of that, that extra crit is just the icing on the cake in decks that already have access to multi-attack. So I don't think this replaces like the Brancate OT necessarily in like Brancate decks, but overall it's very good. And then for the regular species, they already were revealed on the Tuesday stream, so we kind of like briefly talked about them, but this one's really nice because it, you know, basically gets to search your deck or drop for a like up to 2 grade 3 or grade 4 unit cards, where the grade 3s get called to rear and the grade 4s get added to hand. So you can use this in normal decks like Flagberg, for example, to call like 2 different grade 3s. You know, it does have to be like, you know, the cards do have to have different names. So you can't search out like 2 Inlet Pulses, that would be a bit too good, but you can search out like Shelling Cannon as well as Inlet Pulse. So that's pretty good. But then of course this is mainly for like grade 4 decks, right? So you can search out your Mahar, you can search out your Seraph Pure Light, your Bastion Prime and stuff like that. So in those decks, this will be a very nice one of. Only shame is that it is a one of, right? So hopefully, you know, you have a lot of draw power, put that Verena Arcs to work to try to find this card to draw. It's like, you can kind of treat it as like your 5th copy of your grade 4s, I guess, which is also pretty good in that sense. So then the Blitz Order is also another card that I really like, where it's the first card that basically says we're starting to print OT hate a little bit. So this one is Soul Blast 1, and it's a 25k shield. So Soul Blast 1 for a 25k shield is already very good. Like, that's already a very good defensive card. But you can also give your Vanguard the effect that for that turn, all of your opponent's units with over 100 million power lose a crit. So this is very nice because it is, you know, a 25k shield with that blanket statement of like, okay, if you check an OT, that thing is not going to hit unless it's a Brancate OT, in which case it depends how they apply it. So if they choose to apply the 100 million first and then this sees that and reduces it by 1, then they're going to be doubling zeros. But if they do it the other way around by doubling and then applying the 100 mil, then they kind of bypass it. So Brancate players need to know how to resolve their Brancate OT now, so that's also great. But jokes aside, this is a really, really nice idea as a card, and I hope they kind of print more of these kind of like anti-OT cards, because I think it's really, really interesting. So overall, really like this card. Like the 4 generics are insanely good. They're all like 5 out of 5s, like by far amazing cards, and basically the main sellers of this set. And if you open a box, you'll pull one of these 4 for sure, and they all go like, these go basically for like the 1/3 of a box, whereas this goes for like 2/3 of a box in terms of its early price here in Japan. So that's pretty good. And then every nation got one of these, which is a grade 3 that says, if during this turn on Rearguard and Guardian Circle, your opponent has drive checked or damage checked the trigger, then he gets plus 10k power and plus 10k shield. So that's already pretty good effect, because 23k attackers like without Persona Ride are pretty strong, and 10k shield as an addition, you know, it was a really good deck because it has a lot of 10k shields available. Having 10k shields in your decks tends to make them a bit better in my opinion. So I think that's pretty nice. But are the other effects good? Now that's where we have to debate a little bit. So the Dragon Empire one, sadly we start with the weakest one, is when he attacks the Vanguard, count cost 1 to retire an opponent's rear, and then if you didn't, you draw 1, and then they all share the same second effect of like needing to banish an OT from your drop. So you banish an OT from your drop, and for that battle he gets plus 15k power. So only for that battle, not even for that turn. This card compared to the other ones is horrible. It is CB1 for a retire, and if you didn't, you draw 1 and banish your precious OT for 15k for a battle. Like, why just that? It's so weird that that's all that does. So this one's really disappointing. This got 1 out of 5 to me. It's honestly pretty sad. The Dark States one is like a stark comparison, because the Dark States one is like, when it's not boosted and attacks the Vanguard, you can put the other rearguard in the same column as him to the soul to do the following. You retire an opponent's rearguard, no countermods by the way, and get 5k for the turn. This one says for the turn for some reason. And then you can banish an OT from your drop. For that battle, your opponent cannot guard with grade 1 or greater from hand. So it blocks PGs. So just that first effect is so good because, for example, let's say in Chronojet, your opponent usually expects that only one of their units are going to get removed from the board through Chronojet's, you know, skill itself. But In this instance, you now add some back row hate into Chronojet that didn't have it before, and you can also put the rearguard behind him into Soul to fuel your GGs for later that you can search off of your upstream, and then you can, you know, basically, or you can turn this guy into a grade 0 through the crest effect and then turn him into a GG, stuff like that, right? So that's also really nice. That's also super, super good. And the fact that you get like power and back row hate, like he hits for 28k without Persona Ride already, if your opponent hits a defensive or something too, which is like super good. So this guy's a 5 out of 5. He's good in Jeweled, he's good in Chronojet, he's good in so many decks. I feel like also his art is just amazing, by the way, but I feel like if you're playing Dark States, I would pick up a lot of places of this guy. Like he is just mwah, chef's kiss. But then we move on to the Brandgate one. Brandgate one is like fine. It's like Soul Blast 1 to get boost and 2k, which is like fine and stuff like, you know, you can make your Obscurades on turn 3 hit for 38k, which is pretty strong. And then you can banish an OT to give himself the continuous back row rearguard circle effect that all your front units get plus 5k. So pretty good effect as well. Just not sure if we already have space in most of the Brandgate decks to play this, whereas like, or like I wouldn't make space for it. Like for this one, I would make space. This one's like more of a premium card, I guess. This is like DP would like this a lot. Yeah, grade 3 booster in Dimensional Pieces, Hex is saying in chat. Like, I think this card is okay. It's like a 3 out of 5, I think. And then the Keter one is another 5 out of 5 for me because he says, on attack, you look at the top card of your deck, put it on top of your deck or into your soul, and then you counterblast 1 for the rest of the effect. So it's like, as a non-condition, you get to peek at the top card, which is already so good. Hexorb likes that, Minerva likes that, freaking Youthberg likes that. Every Keter deck likes a free peek at top / soul builder. And then you can CB1, choose your opponent's Vanguard that's 14k power or greater, and for that battle increase his power by that power. If your opponent has checked an OT, he adds that OT power to himself. He will get past the OT no matter what by just, and still ask for a 15k shield, which is great, right? Or whatever else you've added. So he's literally an OT counter as a card. You can CB1 to get past an OT, and then otherwise you can also banish an OT from your drop zone yourself to choose one of your other units in your front row to get plus 15k for that turn. For that turn again. Why is it Dragon Empire 1 for that battle? I don't know. He looks sick, so it's sad that he doesn't, you know? So yeah, the Keter one is another 5 out of 5. Amazing card. Simply incredible. And then finally the Stoichia one. This one is also really good. On attack as a cost, it mills 2, really good in stuff like Zorga. To do the following, you soul charge 1, which is also good, and get plus 5k for that turn. And if for this cost you milled normal units, then she gets plus 15k instead. So again, like 38k attacker, potentially pretty good. And then if you banish the OT from your drop, she gets to choose any unit card from your drop and add it back to your hand. That's a really good card effect. Like that is like a once per game effect is really nice. Like you got to keep in mind that these like banish an OT is like a once per game effect. So why is the Dragon Empire one so bad and this one's like, you can get a PG back, you can get a Persona Ride back? It's like, it's such a stark difference. It's not like Dragon Empire is like the best nation in the game or something. I guess with Gendiva it's pretty good, but like, I don't know, man. It's a little bit strange. And then the Lyrical one is a ghost, so that's already good for Felty users. You know, she's right next to her, but she's also really good. When she's boosted at the end of the battle, you Soul Blast 1 to bounce the rearguard behind her, basically, back to hand, and then you can banish the OT to choose a card from hand that is the same grade or lower than your Vanguard, and call it to rear. So you can call it to any rear, so you can call it over her too, so you can make multi-attack. So she's also really good. So I think her, as well as the Keter one and the Dark States one, get like 5 out of 5s in terms of the generics. The Stoichia one, I would say it's like a 4 out of 5. It's just slightly missing a little bit more. This one's a 1, this one's a 3. So that's kind of how I would see them. But that's the non-lyrical stuff. Let's talk about the lyrical thing. So I'm not going to go over the actual effects too much because that would take ages. We're not really doing a set breakdown here, just like first impressions. In terms of Clarissa, they basically, so all of these new retrains get the dress up ability, which says they're all regarded as their old selves at the same time. So you can run them together, their old ones, Persona Ride over each other, and also at the same time, you know, they're treated as the same card at all times, except for their original card names for effects that search for cards with original card names. So this one basically says that she now always searches for like the aim for best idol or whatever the order is that allows you to do the brawler effect. So in the past, you could only do that once per game. When you would ride the grade 3 Clarissa over the grade 2 one, she would search the order. Whereas now this one searches it as an act. So that's a very nice like stability boost. But in exchange, she now only draws 2, but she hasn't just hit anything to draw 2. She's not like draw 1 for each hit. She'll just draw 2 no matter what, even if she only hits 1 thing. And then she gives all of your earnest correct rearguards plus 5k, so that's actually more power than before, which is also very nice. So that's a really good part of Clarissa, but it doesn't feel like that's the kind of support that would push her to the top compared to some of these other archetypes, which is like a little bit unfortunate because her other support is basically just like new earnest correct names, which is nice. Like this one is cool because she essentially lets you give one of your basically give your Vanguard the effect that you can stand a rear guard, so you get to do multi-attacks without necessarily relying on the card that stands, because there is an earnest correct that stands, so that's pretty good. And then the other earnest correct support was this one, which basically says that you can choose a earnest correct from your drop that is not herself for CB1 and that is grade 2 or lower, and add it back to your hand, so you can recur some pieces. So just increasing earnest correct names is pretty good, but it doesn't necessarily push the deck to the very top again, so it's like a 3 out of 5, like relatively average. Very cute though, like Nardak art is amazing, so seeing Clarissa again, it just feels great, heals the soul. Then we have Celestial. Celestial got the Raging Form Dragon treatment, where she can basically discard 1 to search your deck for any card with the Black Wings ability, which is really good, and call it. And then when she attacks at the end of the battle, you CB1 discard 1 to ride from deck or hand. From deck, by the way, it's pretty insane. The original SDL as stand, she loses a drive when you shuffle your deck. So she basically got the Raging Form treatment, but you can ride from deck, which is like, imagine if Raging Form could ride from deck. That's like, that would be insane. But the cost is that like the main grade 3 is really, really good, but the only good support card is basically this one, which says like White Wings during your battle phase. When your Celestial Vanguard is placed, she stands. So, and she also, when placed on rear, lets you get an Celestial back from your grade 3 from your drop to the bottom of your deck. So you can, for example, then ride again with her. So you can keep recurring the Celestials, which is really, really good. So I think those 2 cards are really good. The other support card is kind of mid. So Celestial is like a 4 out of 5. Like honestly, it seems like really strong support. Just depends on how the archetype's how you build it basically. Lorna, a lot of people had really high expectations for, but ended up kind of falling flat because in the end, like her being an on place to call 1 from top 5 is good. That's like, that you basically run this one in the ride deck and then run 4 copies of the old Lorna roll instead. And then like, cause her on attack effect is like, yeah, you still sing a song, but your opponent's Vanguard has to be grade 3 for her to soul blast the grade 3 Lorna roll and then to get the drive +1 and block Sentinels. She doesn't gain crit anymore. Like the extra drive is cool and you can put the Lorna roll grade 3 into your soul pretty easily, but the problem is your opponent's Vanguard has to be on grade 3. So that's the only kind of issue, but her support cards are really good because her support cards are this one, the Mariru, who is a 20k attacker, as well as a song searcher. We've never had a song searcher, so that's really good. Like, stronger attacker, they're going to be restanding plus searching songs is like, mwah, chef's kiss. Absolutely incredible. So that's a really good card. And then you have like a searcher here. It's like CB1 to search for up to 2 different Lorna rolls. And then if you whiff the search, you draw 1. So like, but costing CB1 is a little bit tough, I guess. I guess you don't CB that much in this deck and you have like continuous countercharging, so it's not that bad, I suppose. You can afford to burn through some CB. But the big winners of Lyrical in this set are these 2 girls, which is, you know, Willista is, as you know, my Valentine's date this year. And I'm very happy to see her glow up because you're going to want to tune in. You're going to want to like, you know, stop zoning out and listen here because Willista is insane because of several reasons. One, on ride, discard 1 to get a gem card back from your drop or soul. Now, you might be thinking, oh, those old gems are so bad. Why would you want to play them? We got a new gem that counts as both of those gems at the same time. So during the entire fight, she counts as both of those gems at the same time and says, if you have a list of Vanguard, you can play it. You put this to soul, you draw 1, you give your Vanguard plus 5k, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you give your Vanguard the effect. When your Vanguard attacks, counterblast 1, soul blast a ballista grade 3 from soul, and then choose one of your rear guards and stand it, and then you can't play any more orders for this turn. So basically, this is power, draw, soul, as well as rear guard restand. Remember the last time I had to count 4 good things about an order? Eva grade 1 research, baby. That's how good this card is. It's insane. And it's also counted as 2 cards. Like, there's so many good things about this. So you get to discard 1 to recur this card. That does 5 good things. On top of that, there is this generic who says it's the cycle card for Lyrical. When discarded in your right phase, Soul Blast 1, put it in bot deck and draw 1. And then when placed on rear, if you Persona Road, then Counterblast 1, you give your Vanguard a skill that all your front units get plus 5k power. But UCB 2 per turn in Willistas, you can't really afford that second skill. But these cycle cards all say, when discarded during your right phase, Soul Blast 1, put to bot deck and draw 1. And in every other deck, it's always been like, okay, I will use that effect in the early game, and in the late game, I will use the Persona Ride effect. Whereas in Willista, you can ride her, ditch this to draw a card, and then get back the gem that will draw another card. Does it connect? Do you understand where we're going with this? This is a good interaction. And that's just the first line of text. Because Willista then says, you can Soul Blast 1 gem card, and then depending on which ones you Soul Blasted this turn, you do the following. That new gem card is the only one you play, and it counts as both. So you do both. And both of those effects say, one of them is look at top 5 cards of your deck, call 2 unit cards from among them, and then shuffle your deck. You no longer discard anything, so you filter. You filter. Very important. You're filtering out 2 units every turn. And then she gets plus 15k for that turn. Don't forget, she also gets plus 5k from the order, so she gets plus 20k. She's hitting for 33k, 41k with a generic 8k boost on your opponent's 10k power grade 2. Attacking 5 times, by the way. On your opponent's grade 2, by the way. Pretty good. It's pretty good. You also have that grade 1 that says when you play a gem, you draw 1. We're drawing a lot of cards here. There's a reason why people say that this feels like you're playing Eva, but you can make 5 to 6 attacks if you check the new OT as well. It's pretty good. She swings 4 times only if your opponent's grade 2. That's true. Your opponent does need to be on grade 2. Doesn't the other restander also need that clause, or does she not? No, she doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It's only this card, that old restander. That's 4 times. Still, 4 times with all that power is pretty good, but I digress. Still swinging 5 times when you're, even when it's like mid battle or like, I mean, mid game is still very, very good. So Willista's really good, and things don't end there because she also has a searcher who says, if you've played a gem this turn and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, she gets plus 5k. And when she's placed on rear, if you have a Willista grade 3 Vanguard, you put a card from hand to soul. Again, don't forget that this thing says you have to Soul Blast a grade 3 Willista. So you can put no Willista to soul. And on your going second turn 3. And then you look at top 5 for 2 different original name Willistas, or up to 2, and add them to your hand and shuffle your deck. And if you didn't add any, you draw 1. There's no CB attached to this one like the Lorna Roll one. So even if you whiff, you just draw 1. You filled your soul to draw 1. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. So Willista got some of the most pushed support in this set, and she got pretty damn good. I will say that much. She got some good support. So you're going to want to watch out. This deck is going to be attacking you 5 times, drawing a bunch. People call this the Eva that attacks 5 to 6 times. It's pretty good. I'm pretty excited. As someone that loves Fuzichoko's art, I'm very excited about this deck. I ordered my pieces. It's pretty expensive, just because it's, this is a generic, and, they're pulling cards is a bit harder in Festival Booster, because the boxes are smaller and cheaper and stuff like that, but I digress. And then we have Felty Rosa, who basically does what the old Felty does, but better. So she says, during your turn, if you have a Felty Rosa grade 3 in your soul, all your front row ghosts get plus 10k power. So going first turn 3, you can do that. Your opponent doesn't have to be on grade 3 or anything. So they're going to hit hard. And then you can CB1 to, for that turn, give herself this effect twice, which says when you drive check a ghost normal unit or a Felty Rosa grade 3, you can call that to an empty regard circle, and if you did, she gets an extra drive. So you can do this up to twice. Just make sure not to double crit, because if you double crit, you can't do anything. You wasted a CB, but I guess if you double crit, maybe you're winning. Who knows? So, basically what the old Felty does, but better, bigger power, right? So don't forget that this is a ghost, so it's already support, but some of the other really good cards that Felty got is this one, who is, when she's placed not from hand, she basically lets you restand all of your rearguards in the same column as her, and also get plus 5k. So she restands like the grade 1s that boost her and stuff, or boosted your previous thing that was in this column and stuff like that. And then when she attacks, you may give her plus 5k, and then she goes to the bottom of the deck to free up that circle. typical Felty style. And then this one is basically how you enable the Felty grade 3 skill, which is at the end of battle that she boosted. If you have a Felty Rosa Vanguard, you can count +1 to put the other rear guard in this column to your soul to draw 1. So you can boost a Felty with this to CB1, put that Felty to soul and draw 1, and then her effect will activate to give +10k to all your ghosts in the front row. So then you're hitting like a truck. So very good, 5 attacks. You know, it's always basically been Felty's gimmick, but now she does it better with more consistency and more good tools. So that's honestly great. And so aside from that, there's basically just a few like kind of like generic-ish cards that I think are worth mentioning here and there. So the cycle card, of course, is a very good one that we already talked about, which is very nice. And we see Wise. Oh my god, you cannot make me say your username in the middle of a video, bro. Wisexa for the 21 months. There we go. But anyway, getting back to what we're talking about, there's like a bunch of cards that support 2 different archetypes at once. So this one's like Lilfa and Michu, but it's not very good, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But basically some of the highlights for me in terms of some of these generic cards is we have this one who I think is pretty cool, who's like, when she attacks the Vanguard, if you Persona Row this turn, CB1 bounce 2 of your other rear guards, and then she gets +10k. So in Kairi, this can open up, you know, more circles basically, but I think just in general, like this can be good in like whatever like comes out in the future. Could be good in premium potentially, like CB1 to bounce 2, doesn't call anything, but empties up the circles and, you know, gives you power, so it's pretty nice. This one's also nice. She's like Hazelit and powerful support, where she's a 19k attacker, and when she's selected by the ability of your Herminia or Hazelit Vanguard, you can CB1 to draw 1. So obviously in Herminia, you know, your Melty is going to be good enough, but this is basically a specific Melty with a bit less power. Well, I guess a bit more power if you activate the +10k in both Hazelit and Herminia, so pretty good. She draws cards. And then aside from that, I think the other one that kind of stood out to me was this one, which is when she plays on rear count +1, you look at top 7 for a dress up card. So she searches for these new girls basically. So for all of those archetypes. So that is basically all the cards that stand out from the new ones in Festival Booster, and took quite a bit to talk about. Honestly, like this is a much more impactful set than expected for like a mini set, and it's really fun to open because this is only covering half of it, right? These new cards are cool, but there's like a bunch of reprints, so a lot of new triggers as well. But the main highlight, of course, also the winking slash, you know, looking at you intensely, FFRs, which are of course very beautiful, but there is a whole lot of reprints in this set, and some of them are pretty damn good. So we're going to talk about that a little bit in tomorrow's video, so you're going to want to tune into that as well. Anyway, gamers, that is it for this first impressions of this set, Festival Booster 2023. What do you think of it? What are your favorite cards from it? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. I have been seeing less people that watch these videos subscribing lately, so make sure you subscribe. Tell your mom to subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe and get into Vanguard, and also check out my channel. It's a pretty good channel, I'd say. I would recommend it myself if I do. And you know, I'm recovering from COVID. Throw me a bone here, bro. I couldn't upload for days, man. I'm trying to get back into the groove of things. So really do appreciate your support. But if you do like this video, give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to do that. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.